Brilliant. It is May 22nd, and we are live on LinkedIn and recording on YouTube and live as well on Zoom. It's interesting weather patterns going on, a lot of energy in events. Yesterday, there were a bunch of conferences in Austin. ERCOT had a conference. It was an innovation conference for all kinds of companies as well. And today, this morning, I just came from NXP that was launching and opening their smart homes innovation lab here in Austin. Exciting things, lots going on. But before we get started with our great guests and everything else, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
I work on the border and I see what I see. I work on the border and it's working on me. I lie awake at night, knowing what I know. There's a price on the head of every border patrol. And I go home to Maria. What else can I do? Cross the border and die by myself in old Mexico. It's just a border, you know.
All right. Good job, Johnny.
How you doing, good buddy?
Hey, Johnny, I wanna remind the audience again that we just got you inducted into the Austin Technology Hall of Fame with Michael Dell and John Truchard and all kinds of superstars and the things are happening. Your phone is probably ringing off the hook, and so tell us, what does it feel like to get so much glory all of a sudden? Is it a little uncomfortable to be on the eye of everybody, or how does it feel to be a celebrity?
Well, Llewellyn would tell you how shy and how shy I am, but it's been really it's been really interesting, Andreas, because my phone has been ringing off. I'm working now with Innovate Mississippi, planning to do stuff with Jackson, Mississippi. But when we did the experiment, I covered the experiment of Austin. And yes, Michael was had PC Limited at IC Square. Jim Trussard was stopover with National Instruments. Laura Kilcrease ran the Texas the incubator, and the Admiral Inman, of course, was doing everything in Washington, and Bobby Inman is also going in this class. It's pretty wild when you look back and say, we never thought about going into a hall, but it feels good. I appreciate it. I don't know if I deserve it, but I'm gonna run with it. But it was what people don't know is that Austin was planned by George Kosmeski, and everything that we did as a natural extension of Kosmeski. We had to get by the legislators who were saying, "What are you professors doing companies down there at the university?" And then we did the Austin Technology Incubator, and the center was IC Square, and the Austin Chamber of Commerce quarterbacked everything, and it was a good experiment, and it worked. And I'm delighted that it worked. I'm not happy with the traffic, but it still worked. I'm happy with all the jobs that were created, and more importantly, all of the companies that were created when I was director of IC Square, and I had Ozzie Barkers as my ATI Austin Technology Incubator director, and David Gibson helping to do all of the research. So it's been a good run, and it's good to look back and see that it's being appreciated.
Sure. So I wanna just share again, that it's the event, the ceremony will be on June 4th, and it's pretty much sold out. So the inductees are John Sibley Butler, Michael Dell, Lori Hawkins, Bobby Inman, Laura Gilcrease, George Kosmeski, Jimmy Trebeck, and James Truchard. And quite an honor, Johnny.
Well, thank you. You know, Truchard did National Instruments, and we talk a lot about Michael, but Jim Truchard did National Instruments, and
absolutely,
and then of course we have John did Whole Foods later, and so he should be there. So it's a good feeling. I know those are all friends of mine, and we did great things. And Dale really did good stuff, and Jim Trussard did great stuff. Laura Kilcrease is now running all of the innovation for Canada, by the way.
Right,
so
right.
We're all very active in the model. We call it the Austin model. And David Gibson and I have a book called Issues in Global Technology and Technology Transfer, where we talk about a lot of this stuff. And the other thing, Andre, is in academic journals, I have put Austin, Texas in mathematical models, how we drew entrepreneurs here. We had the corporation of Ann, who was who was then governor, right, of Texas. And then, of course, President Bush came later, and we had the corporation of the Austin, you know, all the wealth in Texas that invested in all of the kids. And they were all engaged. So it's quite a story. And we're no Silicon Valley, but we certainly have done extremely well. And you know, we have a lot of relations with Silicon Valley. Andre, we would go out to the old inn out there, Holiday Inn, and talk to the professors from Stanford to see what they were doing. But it's quite a run, so I feel proud of myself for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's two Hall of Fame. That's two Hall of Fames, LSU now and Austin, Texas.
There you go. Llewellyn King, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you very much. All is well. Summer is here. It's gorgeous outside. I don't know why I'm sitting in front of a computer when I could be outside in the glorious sunshine.
So I'm curious, Llewellyn. You know, we talk every week how things are going in the economy and the world and what have you. Any new developments in the last 3 days, 4 days?
Well, one of the peculiar things that's happened is there's been a de facto news blackout because all the news has been about the Trump trial. It's been very hard to get news, at least off television, that is not about the Trump trial. I plow through 3 newspapers, so I have some idea of other things, I hope. The economy is being giddy. The stock market is giddy. The total economy, there are questions. Housing is a large question which will impact the economy eventually. If you can't house your workers, they don't have mobility. You won't have them flooding to any other part of the country from where they are, because they'll be terrified that if they give up the accommodation they have, rental or owned, for one somewhere else. That's a very bad thing in America. Labor mobility has been a fundamental part of the economic success of the country. If there was work in California, people by the millions went to California. Recently, there's been work in Texas, and people have been flooding into Texas. But suddenly I read housing is becoming a problem in Texas, as it is everywhere else. We're suffering from tremendous amount of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. So the housing is not being built in the normal supply and demand way, where developers built houses and apartments, and don't forget apartments, a very large number of people can be housed in apartments. So we end up doing it backwards with trying to get the government to do it in specialized things, and that doesn't work very well. First of all, government entities have difficulty in making decisions. They're always being dragged into court, and the amount of housing that they actually put up tends to be both inferior, nobody wants to live in it, ideally, and just not very satisfactory. The market works, but if the market is not allowed to work because of local opposition, we have to build apartments in the suburbs. We can't overlook that. And those lovely green suburbs, we have them outside of every city in the country. Nobody wants an apartment built. I say, you haven't thought about this right. You've thought about a particular kind of apartment. I say, think about Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Think about Park Avenue in New York. Foch in Paris, and you get a very different feel for apartments. Or the great mansion apartments of London. Apartments work, people live in them. They're very efficient, they use energy better, they use every service better. And at a time when we're trying to reduce the amount of services consumed by buildings, apartments are a very desirable way to do that. But we have to have some leadership at the top, and there is none coming. There's not been a sensible statement on housing from the president, the vice president, or the man who aspires to be president again, and he doesn't even have a second in command yet anointed. It is a large problem. It affects everything, plus the total discomfort of individuals, people who can't, grown children who stay at home, all of that. You've got grown children, are they staying at home, Andrew?
Right. So I was also made aware, Llewellyn, to follow your train of thought, that schools is really the real block. There is not enough schools to house all this growth. And so we know we need more K through 12 schools being built, and the independent
a lot of areas schools are closing because enrollment is down. I think that's a shibboleth. I don't think that's a fact. Fact is, it's very hard to cite anything: an apartment building, a power plant, a factory, and that's housing is part of that muscle-bound situation we have, where small local entities have the power to frustrate great national needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an appalling situation. The Economist magazine ran an article saying that Britain is totally muscle-bound. You can get nothing done because of the amount of local capacity to veto projects. They have a saying in Britain, which is quite amusing: Dada. Decide, announce, defend, abandon. We say NIMBY, it's the same part, it's the other side of the same coin. I like Dada myself because I've seen so much of it. People are running around this country saying, we're going to have more energy storage. The Consolidated Edison Company in New York spent 19 years in untold money trying to build a pumped storage unit on the Hudson River at a place called Storm King. It was environmentally reviewed. It was out of sight. It was enhancing, if anything, of the environment. And in the end, they just couldn't stand it, the agony of it, and they gave up. Many great projects. And in the end, this is going to bring us down. Our inability as a nation to do things because a small number of people can hire a lawyer, and in every small group of people there seems to be a lawyer prepared to rush into court and say, my rights are violated, it's all over, we cannot go on like this. It's a catastrophic situation that needs to be addressed, but the political class is all fighting with itself, and it is not addressing the great issues that are coming down the pike at the country, and which at some point will need to be addressed, or we will pay the price for not addressing them.
Sure. So that tells me, Llewellyn, that the need to do more with less is key. Efficiency is key, and I'll borrow some statements from our Hall of Fame, John Butler. He always says people move to Texas, but they don't bring the power grid and they don't bring water with them. What are we going to do? So our guest is going to help us solve the problem of the water side of the equation, perhaps, and maybe more. Let me introduce you to Terrell Jones, who is a superstar that we have been known for. He is actually the Director of Business Development Alliances at SkyH2O, and he's going to be with us for the hour. SkyH2O has pioneered the advancement of atmospheric water generation, focusing on large-scale government and commercial projects. Their technology extracts clean water directly from the air presenting a groundbreaking approach to addressing global water scarcity. Terrell, welcome.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I used to participate on the RoundTable a couple of years back when I lived in Austin. So glad to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on the call. SkyH2O is a startup, and we are advancing and scaling atmospheric water generation. I wanted to make a point based on what Llewellyn was saying about building homes and new technologies. The problem we have in government is when a new technology comes along, they're still stuck in the old ways. We can build houses faster if they're 3D printed and they're stronger. We get for a yard. I have a customer that's a 3D print house, but he can't get financing from the bank. And because they call it a new technology. That technology is not only is it resilient and strong to storm and energy efficient, it can be built in 2 weeks, whereas it take 90 days if it was stick built. And the warranty on it for a stick build is like 10 years. But a warranty on this 3D printed home is like 30 years. It's insane. And so you can't get the banks to finance it. Same problem we have with atmospheric water generation. We have a lot of construction going on and people are financing these large air conditioners. But when it comes to atmospheric water generation, which is really a very big air conditioner, they say, "Oh, that's rocket science." It really isn't. what we do with atmospheric water generation, it's not a new technology. The Germans used it on the U-boats during World War II, and that's why they were able to stay out longer. And so what we do is we take these big variable fans and we suck in the air and we send that air through a clean room filtration process. And once we have that air crystal clean, we freeze it to the optimal dew point and it drops out of the bottom and goes through some UV and comes out as distilled water or raw water. And then for drinking purposes, we'll process it for potable drinking water. And we'll meet the TCEQ standards for Texas or any other place that we plan on doing projects. SkyH2O is the brainchild of Alexander von Welczek. Alex is a pioneer in solar. He sold his company to NRG back in 2010 timeframe for $100 million. And in 2016, they had a drought in California. He changed his focus to water. And he tried to go to Europe and tried to license some of these technology, and they didn't meet his standards. And one of the things he noticed is that a company called First Solar was going out in the desert. And they were scaling up, and he's like, yeah, what are these crazy people going out in the desert? Nobody's going to do that. Now all the solar projects are huge. Right. And so his concept when he did atmospheric water generation, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to scale up. So our machine is the largest on the market. It's a 40-foot container that weighs 29,000 pounds, 13,000 kilograms. And in optimal conditions, it can put out 2,800 gallons a day. But it's not just product that we sell. It is a plug-and-play device that we deploy in clusters. Like when you see a wind farm, you don't see just one windmill, you see many. And so what we do is we deploy 2 or more, 10 or more, and we can just add, if we want another 10,000 gallons, we just add a couple more machines. And so we can plug and play these devices. Now, these devices are industrial scale. They're designed to be outside. They're weatherproof, hurricane-proof. I mean, they're 29,000 pounds. You're not going to move them. We'll blow them down, but they're not going to really move, right? So we buy 3 to 4 acres, and we build what you see behind me as a mock-up of our rendering of a SkyH2O station. It's similar to a gas station, a modernized gas station. And just like Buc-ee's, you can drive up, get, your water, pump it into your truck. You got a Ford F-250, you can fill up a 200-gallon bladder and take it back to your ranch. Or if you got a trailer or a boat, you can fill it up. Or you can just do simple retail. Like you can either go in the store and buy it, and you can also get some healthy food and other items in our store, which basically like I would call it Sharper Image meets Whole Foods. You guys are familiar with Whole Foods downtown Austin, my favorite place. Actually, mine was the one in Domain. But that's our concept for the large scale ones. Then we came out this year with a micro station, which is basically 2 machines, a water tank that handles about, a month's worth of storage, and the processing unit on 50 by 50 feet. And that's something that we want to sell to companies like HEB or Buc-ee's or anybody else like a hospital or a university, so they can have their own supply of 5,000 gallons a day and they can do whatever they want with it. We think that's more economical. We don't have the hassle of buying real estate or getting permitting or dealing with land use. I think right now we got dinged for having to build. I guess in Texas you have to have retention ponds. So what we thought we got cheaper land that didn't have a pond, and then they ended up bringing it up to $5 million because you had to build a moat. And so it's just one of those growing pains, and you live as you learn. But we're really excited about what we can do for the water stress. Right now in America, 45% of the municipal water is toxic with forever chemicals. In Texas, 75% of municipals are toxic with forever chemicals. To bring my point across, in Austin, you have 24 contaminants in your water at any given time. In San Antonio, you have 39. But in Houston, we have 49 and 4 forever chemicals, meaning PFAS, it doesn't come out. And so most people think, oh, you're making this water. Well, our medium is humidity. Well, what's more humid than Houston? And Houston is ground zero. That's why we start in Houston. But we can really go all the way into everything east of 35 is pretty much fair game because it's humid south of Dallas, right? So that's our market that we're targeting in Texas. And we're really targeting everything from around the Gulf, from Monterey all the way around to Miami. So we have plans to build 3 SkyH2O stations in the Houston area. And we have another plan that we just came up with for 3 more in Palm Beach, Florida. And there's a reason for that. One of our shareholders is one of the famous golfers from Live Golf, Dustin Johnson. And my boss followed the other golfers out there. We got a few that are in the pipeline in our data room, threatening to invest. But we're really excited about getting the first one up and running in Houston, Texas, specifically Dickinson, between Dickinson or Baytown. We have a landowner that owns the land next to Buc-ee's in Baytown, a wealthy gentleman that owns Gulf Equities, and we're trying to get him going. We also are looking for project owners for the 2 projects in Angleton and Dickinson. And we're also shopping for, design, build, construction people that can help us build 20 across Texas. So I've been doing a lot of work trying to hustle up and do that. But the exciting things that we've had going on are we're having conversations with companies like Coca-Cola for in Mexico. And we're having conversations with, Amazon for their distribution centers. And we're really trying to push the envelope. But last year we signed a LOI with the Saudi PIF fund. And that's for almost $1 billion, $950 million for 1,800 of our machines. So that kind of got stalled because of the conflict in the Middle East. But we think once that is over, we can engage them again. So we're really excited about the path that we're taking. We do have a little frustration with Texas because Texas folks are used to oil and gas investments, not so much climate tech. And most people don't believe that they have a water problem until you tell them. So, I tell people right here in Houston, we have 49 chemicals. They go, what? Then they don't want to know what's in their water. Most people don't understand the process of water. Houston gets water from Lake Buchanan. Whatever rolls downhill to Houston and we flood, it came from Austin and Lake Buchanan, right? So it's picking up everything that's in there. And then you got the refineries here on the coast. So right here, everything just comes right here. And so you have this nice soup and confluence of a lot of different things. Makes for a nice soup. And we beat out New Orleans as far as being bad in water. And that's a lot. That's saying a lot because, Mississippi River takes up all of the United States. And everything that's across the United States rolls down to New Orleans. But Houston's unique in that respect. So same thing with Corpus Christi. Everything that rolls down from San Antonio rolls down to Corpus Christi. So you learn a lot about the water situation, saltwater intrusion, subsidence, all these different things. So we think we have an answer. What we
Mm-hmm.
try to do is avoid working with the municipal water. One, because most of the municipal water is toxic, and two, municipal governments don't have the budget to
Sure.
not only fix their maintenance or uproot those 100-year-old pipes that no one's ever seen. I think some
Mm-hmm.
cities are operating wood pipes still. And so you're
Mm-hmm.
at your own risk. You can guarantee the water at the treatment facility, but once it hits the old pipes and gets the old plumbing, what comes out of the tap is at your own risk. And so we avoid that. We circumvent the municipal and we undercut bottled water. And how do we do that? Well, if we the size it right, we can make a gallon of water for a nickel. And so there's a lot of margin in there. The consumer will pay $1 for a gallon
Mm-hmm.
or more. In fact, we do pay a lot more for premium drinking
Yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where we're at, and that's what we're trying to do. And I really look at resilience, and I look at emergency management situations because Texas, you know, we have a lot. We just had an emergency here in Houston. I don't usually
Mm-hmm.
watch the news, but I find myself having to watch the local news for weather because you don't want to walk outside and be surprised.
That's
So
right.
Earl, that was very, very good. I will let's say that Llewellyn King came in hot this morning. I haven't seen him land so hot in a long time. But I tell you what, I don't know what's bothering him this morning, but he came in hot. But Earl, let me just ask a question. You know, over the years, as you mentioned, the technology is not old. And when it comes to water, we know that we can take it from the ocean and we can take it from the air. But the question has always been the ratio of what does it cost to get it? What's the energy used to actually get the water? And so if we go back and look at the history of technology and how it brings in water from the air, like the Germans
Yeah.
did in World War II. So my question is, if we come to a point, rather than concentrating on say industries or HEB or buckets and et cetera, what would be the total cost for us to turn to a technology like yours, or is it doable to provide water for America, or provide water for Austin, Texas, or provide water for Houston, Texas? Is the cost still prohibited? Because remember that in the technology of H2O is sitting out there in the Atlantic Ocean, and we could also take all the salt out of that too, and have lots of
Mhm.
water. So what's the numbers behind? I mean, is it
so
doable? Is it doable
so
on a
the
lower scale?
answer is yes and no. Is it cost effective? In certain places, it's not. It's not going to be cost effective in West Texas because there's no humidity, and you'll just burn a lot of electricity and make very little water. However, the application has never been applied, even though the technology's been around. We've never been in such a dire need for drinking water. So we have a lot of water around, but can you drink it? I mean, in West
Mm-hmm.
Texas, you have plutonium 226 in Odessa. You don't want to drink the water there. And that's from an old well from the 70s that wasn't capped correctly. So in the hill country, the wineries can't use their well water. And so with our competitors are things like desalination. Desalination is like a 5-year feasibility study just to get it built and approved. And then once you get it built, they break down a lot and they're very expensive. But the problem I have with them is that they're environmentally destructive because they really create underwater deserts wherever they are. And so if you ever go to Dubai and it smells like a fish wharf, it's because they have desalination and they have all that heat and they're just pushing that sand back in the water and you just killed all the microbes, the coral dies, the fish die. And so you have environmental destruction. Do I think it should be obsolete? No, I think it should be in conjunction with atmospheric water generation because you need acre feet of water to make up for the groundwater you can't get from the aquifers. And so there's got to be a happy medium. But where do we come in? Well, high quality drinking water is at a premium now. This is hard to get. And so eventually there'll be a way to use circular economy to like in the data center when they do water cooling. I can use that heat for power to power up my machine and create water. I'll be talking to Graham Weston about that because he asked a question this morning at the breakfast. So atmospheric water generation and power consumption, our machine is a Internet of Things device, plug and play device. It's also a smart device. So we don't have to run at full speed. We can actually load balance the grid. So when you have overproduction of renewable energy, we can technically build water stations in strategic locations and use that free power, which we can get off the grid, and make water and not pay for it. That's what we call it superpower. When when the power is free for overproduction, and they don't know what to
Right.
do with it, and they can't do anything with it. So we can make water with it instead of paying for explosive lithium batteries. You can make water with our machine. So
Right.
there's different ways of skinning the cat. But I believe once we built one station in Texas and people could see the machine making water and they could kick the tires, they could actually envision building a large scale station in a dream world. And I'm just projecting here that I would go to the Railroad Commission and say, hey, tell me about those pipelines going to West Texas. Let's build something on the coast of the coast, a big water plant, and use those pipes to push that water back out to West Texas because they need it.
That's right. That's right.
But that's not going to happen until I get one micro station in Austin, one in Houston, then a larger station in strategic locations off these big highways like a Buc-ee's. It's not going to happen until they see it. And what happens when you have a new technology? When I sold technology in IT, the CIO would try this new software, and all the other CIOs in the government would go, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to see the political fallout from them doing that. And if it's a good deal, we'll buy it next year. What I envision with the SkyH2O station, once they see one station, everybody's going to get all that, because right now it's magic, but in their mind, but it's a fact. These things have been around for a while. It's just never been applied. We're on a second generation of our machine. It's working, but somebody's got to pull the trigger, and so that's where we're at.
Yeah, we did.
Two questions.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have two questions. The first one, which is somewhat answered, is the enormous amount of energy that it will consume. The second is the quality of the product. Distilled water is not what people are used to drinking. And we look to water contain various beneficial minerals, including iron. We change the diet very radically if we feed people distilled water, which is normally used either scientifically or in medicine. For example, surgeons use a lot of it to wash wounds. Tremendous quantities of distilled water at very high cost. I'm not sure that there's a demand for distilled water as drinking water. Most of the water we pay for in little plastic bottles. I don't, because I think it's ridiculous. But people who pay for water in little plastic bottles and create a huge environmental disaster with their plastic bottles are looking for water that came out of a spring, they came out of the Rocky Mountains or the Welsh Hills, that is supposed to have minerals that are beneficial. When you say to people, here is water, it tastes different and it's got no minerals, I'm not sure that you'll get a market for it initially, or even time. And it is very expensive water. It's not going to solve a farmer's problem. It's not going to be ideal for flushing toilets or taking showers, of course, because it's very expensive water.
So you're right. Each machine comes with a processing unit for potable drinking water, like I said earlier, and we have two markets. Hospitals will pay premium, and so we're manufacturing for non-mineralized water. However, we come standard with each machine, a processing unit, to mineralize, and we can program that water any way we want once it's off the machine. And for potable drinking water, you have to mineralize it. And there's a WHO standard, there's a Texas standard from TCEQ, and we meet or exceed those standards. We technically can program the water any way you want. You want, alkaline water, oxygenated water, or what's the other term they use? But anyways, we can program that water any way you want it. And so we've addressed that issue as far as the drinking water. I want to tell you right now, there's a very low confidence in tap water and a very high confidence in bottled water sales. And it's going like this on bottled water sales. And so we have our own bottling facility that we will be building in each SkyH2O station, which will be using highly renewable materials that are, not a single-use plastic. So we're trying to be the most sustainable water company in the world. And so everything that goes into our production of the water, we don't use chemicals. The facility itself is going to be LEED certified. The materials we use for bottling are going to be highly renewable type situation. We even looked at bamboo bottle caps. So our goal is to be in accordance with everything sustainable, and we also want to be a highly profitable business. So we look at all of those aspects, and we think we kind of answered the question of how to address that. And if you look at it at SkyH2O station, our financial projections, we're highly profitable just selling the water in a bottled situation, whether it's in small bottles or it's in the 1, 3, and 5 gallon. The bulk water is questionable because sometimes they want a volume discount, but we can still be profitable because we make a high grade water. If you think about all the ice machines at every gas station in Texas, and they got a little cooler out with beer, nobody's really checking where that water comes from. And we think bottled water is a walking dead business because they are stealing water from local municipal water. And so the carbon footprint for shipping Fiji across the globe or everything coming from Atlanta is too expensive. We make the water locally and we distribute it locally. So when, God forbid, we have another Hurricane Harvey in Houston, the number one problem we had is when I was in Austin trying to come out with the medical team, we couldn't get past Katy without a boat. So the people on the other side couldn't get bottled water in. So if we're already making it on site, we don't have to worry about somebody coming from Florida and going to Costco and bringing truck pallets full of bottled water in Texas, and then they get here and they can't get to people with the water. We'll already have it there. And so one of the things,
I was going to ask you real quick, how much energy, the kilowatt hours, does it take to run the machine to produce what? Is there a number?
one machine, the name of our machine is the 8OG Maximus 4260.
Okay.
And I have a spec sheet I'll send you guys. It is rated at rated conditions, which is 80% humidity, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is Houston year round almost. We can push out 2,800 gallons and we only need 120 kW for that.
Okay.
If it's a micro station where there's 2 machines and it's a processing unit and some other interfaces, it's about 300 kilowatts.
Okay.
Maybe 260 to 300. And so obviously when we have 12 of these up on 3 acres, we're going to need 3-phase power and do some other things. We got a store there. We have some EV charging, so we'll have a lot more power usage. But the machine itself, each individual machine, it only needs 100 kW, and it doesn't need it full blown because we power it up and down as humidity is available or power is available or cheap.
Got it.
So there's a variable, but if I was running it full bore at 120 kW.
Okay.
Now let me just ask you this. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. First question just relates to the demand that you would be experiencing and how you've grown over the years. And the other question is, I've worked with Ben Bonds, Governor Ben Bonds, we call him, who used to be the Lieutenant Governor of Texas. And our concept was to, as you mentioned earlier, we don't have many pipes underground delivering water to other places that need it. So we're gonna put a pipe between Louisiana and Texas and West Texas, and as all of the hurricane water would come in, the water that they did not need would go to the pipe and go to places. But we had to go through so many counties for them to make a decision. So the first question is, the last question happens to be, how do city councils think about you? And the other question is your demand over the last number of years.
Okay, so there's not one SkyH2O station built yet because of all the permitting and problems with trying to do that. But that piping situation was addressed because there's already pipes from oil and gas that come from West Texas to the coast, to the refineries. And the Railroad Commission actually manages it. They can be retrofitted to take water because they already have abandoned lines And when you talk to economic development, they tell you all these secrets. And I could tell you, we went to 30 cities in Texas, and only one didn't want us to come. And it's because they had 7 wells on their land, and they sold that water around. And then what they told us, I don't want to say the city, but I'll just say it's a rich family. They sell all the water around to the neighboring cities, and the city manager with a straight face says, we have what's called natural desalination. So basically his aquifer butts up to the Gulf of Mexico, and it goes through the sand, it goes into his aquifer, it keeps filling it up and charging it. And that's saltwater intrusion, if you ask the scientists. But if you ask the city manager and the people that own that city, it's natural desalination. So they're the only ones that pretty much said, don't come. And I won't say what city it is because I don't know who's on this call. And I still work in the state of Texas, and I'm friends with everybody.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is you do have competition, because I was thinking that competition would be nil. So when you look at your deck, what's your competition besides the regular way we do?
That's very interesting that you say that, because people don't get it. People think of us as, okay, you're water purifiers. No, we're not. We're not taking water from the ground. We're not taking it from the ocean. We're making water. So all the bottled water companies are our competitors, but they're also our customer.
Sure.
Because I make water. They can't say that. And if you look in the air, we have what's called atmospheric rivers. There's a whole abundance. Until they figure out how to tax the air, I got more water than anybody else.
That's right.
Have you heard about, Earl, have you heard about the guy, I guess when I was in college, the guy had an automobile that was designed to run on water. And after he presented it, he disappeared. Have you heard of that guy?
That's an epidemic. That's been going on since the 70s. I went to a Black church in San Diego called 61st Division Church of Christ. A car dealership bought their patent for their water-driven car. A gentleman up north just got murdered.
Illinois.
Who also had a water-driven car. That whenever something that defies the powers that be, you can find this across all the big industries. If you circumvent or disrupt their business, 2 things will happen. Either you get bought out and your patents get shelved, or you disappear, or you die. And so it's a very tricky thing with water-driven car or hydrogen-driven car or conversions, because you gotta remember there's a mafia in the car business, and they don't want. I mean, what we got hoodwinked into hybrid cars because oil and gas said no, you can't go to electric. Remember California tried to do who stole the electric car that long time ago? I think it was General Motors had the EV1.
That's right.
They made 1,000 of them, and then they destroyed them because they didn't want to do it. Well, that's what happens with technology. Our competitors are going to be bottled water industry, but they're not really our competitors because we can make water for them.
Right.
So we're kind of in a gray area.
I certainly love the resiliency element of it, and I'm all for that when it comes to I want my solar power, my batteries, I want my water, I want to be able to survive in the world that it disappears. So I think that it's interesting that you guys have not been able to deploy anything in Texas. Anything deploy anywhere else, Terrell?
We have one machine that's in Texas, but it's not ours. We sold it to a government contractor. It's being evaluated by the Army's Future Command. I don't know the name of the company, but we don't own it, but it's right there in Austin.
What about coming to Texas State and putting one in our facilities, and we can do whatever we want as a university? So why don't we partner and we build one and we start doing R&D on it?
Yeah. You can get one for $500,000, or you can do a micro station, and we can talk about that. There's so much federal funding for resilience and water. I think I sent you a list of, most people don't realize they can get a machine. If you're a city of 10,000 or less, you can get a micro station because, several different agencies are giving up money for resilience. And that's not even a state, that's federal. I mean, all these Asian, there's a lot of money for water. If you're on the east side of 35, you're probably in a water disaster zone. There's a lot of Biden money that's just untouched. There's so much opportunity. It's also PACE certified. I'm on the Texas PACE. Go there, see, you'll see SkyH2O over there. So anytime you build something and you need to save water and you need to be resilient, you qualify for PACE. If you're a government entity, you qualify for state revolving funds. So it's not a question. It's not a question of where the money is or the need. We know there's a need. We just need people want to take the risk. I would love to have a university purchase one. I've been trying to get Rice. I got them on. I was on their throats this morning at breakfast because they run ion, and so I may have gotten them. I said you can't just let Austin have one. Try to pit them against each other.
Sure.
I've been trying to get one at Texas A&M. I've been trying to get one at Prairie View. So hospitals are ideal because what happens when the power goes out? Hospitals are designed to have redundant power. There's two sources of power going there, but what they don't have is redundant water. And those machines that are in the hospital need to work. And we learned this in San Antonio with the hospitals. Every major hospital during the Texas freeze had a problem because they couldn't get access to water. And another issue we have is grocery stores in Texas. When they don't have water, by law, they have to throw the produce out. I believe there should be one machine at least behind every H-E-B, every major supermarket, every Buc-ee's, because of that one reason. And so from a resilience standpoint, I want to work with reinsurance because these are big issues. When we have a big incident, we're out without water for 5 to 7 days. And so I think we can address those.
Let's talk about FDA and water. FDA and those things that are intrusive to the human body. FDA and what food, all of the stuff around what you could put in food and what you cannot take out of food. So, do you have any kind of FDA standards, housing and food, if you will, in your product itself? Does the FDA have to certify bottles at a time? Do you have to go before the FDA to do that?
I don't think that there is not one water agency that's federal. That's the first thing. Second thing is the one agency that was supposed to do something is the EPA. But if you look around the municipal water, we have what's called legal water and safe water, and they're not the same. So what does that mean? Forever, the EPA has been allowing these corporations to dump stuff in the water, and each jurisdiction has voted on what legal limit there could be. But if you're a human body, you ain't supposed to have any toxins in the water, but they've negotiated that. So the FDA, I don't think they deal with water. They deal with food and drug. There's no water agency. There's no federal water agency. And the one agency that should do something is the EPA. And they've already proven to be unsatisfactory because they have allowed the corporations to dump. I mean, look at every year we got a new president and they always get a new bill where they can dump more stuff into the water.
Well, let me ask you this, Earl.
Terrell, let me ask you a few questions. First of all, you are dependent on high humidity, right? 80% is quite high. In my apartment at the moment, and it's been very wet here for several days. It's not today, but the humidity has never gotten above 70. Which to us seems like a lot of humidity. Parts of the world that are desperate for water to drink and for everything else, particularly the part of Africa that I come from, are suffering hugely, and there is very little humidity. The air is bone dry, which is part of the problem. There are no clouds, nothing is happening. El Nino is having an effect. Animals are dying, people are dying. It's a very tragic situation. All along the Zambezi River, the great river of Africa, there's destitution because the river is not running high enough and the dams are not full. And there's no electricity because the mighty Kariba Dam doesn't have sufficient water. So there's nothing, including the humanitarian provision of drinking water, where your machine would help.
Actually,
and also you need a very reliable electric supply, do you not?
So there's two things way to look at that. One, we are industrial scale. So you're not going to be able to bring our machine out into the boonies because one, you need a crane to get it off the train or off the truck. And it's a 40-foot ISO container. So it can be shipped by ship and by plane and by rail. However, if you're trying to do a humanitarian deal out in the middle of nowhere, you're going to need a smaller machine that's mobile and agile for that terrain, because these are a project just to move them. And so I've had lots of conversations with vendors that want to do things in Africa. I personally want to do things in Africa, specifically West Africa, where my DNA comes from. But I will tell you that we looked at the market models. We can make water all the way down to 20% humidity. It's just, do you want to spend that money and do that electricity? We also can do a circular economy if we partner with a smart grid. So if I was to go into Africa, I would need a partner to give me a like our micro station with 2 machines. We can get like Omid over at Yachty Energy to help us with a 20-foot container, put 300 kilowatts in, we'll make 5,000 gallons a day. That's great for the village. Now, who's going to pay for that and who's going to ship it to, let's say it's going to Uganda. It's got to go through Kinshasa, and it's got to, if you try to deal with different countries shipping between there, I've had this conversation.
I know, I'm an African, I know.
Yeah. So who's going to take ownership and who's going to be responsible for it? We can't say that we can be responsible for it. And if you know anything, it's like trying to do something in Mexico.
The small and very portable entities that have local control. And notwithstanding what I said about the local control problem here, you need local control in Africa for things to work. At least that's my experience. Your technology is a condenser, basically, isn't it?
Yes.
Instead an upside-down air conditioner. There are 4 other technologies, I believe, for taking water out of the air. One is using membranes, and I forget the other 2. I did some research on this a few years ago. Are you confined to your own technology, or are you?
So our mandate is to do at scale. And you'll see that we're the largest and we make the most water in the most energy efficient manner. So until somebody makes one bigger and more cost effective, we would use somebody else's because we're a project development company, but nobody's building them that big. Nobody's putting out that much production. And so, like somebody's already said, well, my machine's better. Well, we're not going to hawk products like we hawk a laptop. You get a little bit of operations and maintenance. But if I go to a banker, they don't want to hear that. They want large volume. And so our micro stations are what we sell for short-term revenue, and they're easy to do. But our big term is to have a real estate valued asset where we buy the land, 3 or 4 acres, and we put up a big sign, like a Bucky sign, and like show me the rendering behind me. And we want to sell the water because the water makes the most money. I make very little money off the machine. I make a lot of,
Terrell, will you have the same impact on electric supply that data centers are, and utilities will be, oh my God, not another water plant.
So that's what's interesting.
Supply we haven't got.
I think we have an answer for data centers. I think we can use the heat from the data center to power our machines so they can have a returning water. I think we can help Tesla gigafactories because they get kicked out of places. And Samsung just got in trouble where at Taylor or where's it? Yeah, they just got So we know there's a market. It's just people willing to try things out and pull the trigger on doing it. And we have new technologies that address these big problems. It's just the willingness and the ability for government to be agile to approve such purchase. Like right now, Texas Emergency Management, 3 different groups have been trying to get authorization from Texas Emergency Management, 3 different cities, and they can't because there's no NAICS code for an atmospheric water generator for anybody. It's just water supply. And what does that entail? Their brain immediately goes to municipal water because that's all they know. Right. So when I said that the technology needs to be upgraded in government, I've been trying to get, Cody Pursuit from Brazoria County, one of the congressmen, to put it on the books for 2 years now. And so I just keep pressing. Eventually somebody's going to get wise and want to do it. And I think that should be done with 3D printed homes. They can't get bank financing because it's new technology. They think it's rocket science. It's really not. It's actually fabulous. You can make a building more powerful and resilient and save money at the same time
Yeah.
and
What's
get a
gonna
better
happen,
warranty.
what's gonna happen, Terrell, when somebody designs an air conditioning unit with a clean water takeoff and they're making their own water in their house as they run the air conditioner? They're making
They
it
can they
anyway
can
and
do
it's being thrown away.
they can do that, but that's not our market. There's other atmospheric water generator companies that have smaller, all the way down to an appliance you put on your kitchen cabinet. We're not in that market. We are specifically going for industrial scale. If we do anything, we're going to go bigger. We're not trying to be small for that. That's people like Source Water, Zero Mass Water. They do that, or all the other 9 different companies. WaterGen puts it on a truck. They can put it on a ticket to the forward operating base of emergency or war situation. We got our friend down in San Antonio, Moses West, that has a similar setup that he's selling to the Army. It's a mobile unit. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to do permanent stations for permanent water use. It's a 30-year asset. It'll last forever. So you can just change it out, change out filters like an HVAC engineer. It's not a lot of, then remote manage it from a NOC, a network operating center, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
So
I
how many do you want now? Sorry, my
well,
salesman
I
tapped.
think it's interesting. If I'm sitting around a table with you and ask, what's your biggest pain, is for people to see it as a problem. First of all, for cities to see it as a problem, and second of all, as Llewellyn said, I guess you measure the amount of humidity that where you can operate. So you're talking about in certain parts of America. Remember that Chicago is just as humid as New Orleans in the summer, I might add.
Yeah,
So,
we look at it as we're a startup, and the number one complaint for atmospheric water generation, whether it's us or anybody else, is I bought that machine. They said it could do 1,000 gallons a day, and they took it to Chicago in the middle of winter, and it didn't work. So
yeah,
we've had a customer do that already. And
I understand you have to measure the amount of humidity. So I mean, it's
we
like
do a
playing golf.
feasibility.
If I'm a golfer, why would I want to live in Chicago? Yeah, I
So
mean,
we do a feasibility study on every project, whether it's small or big. We'll ask the customer, how much water do you need and where exactly are you making this water? Because I need to have historical data of your atmospheric conditions. Otherwise, I'm lying to you. If I tell you my machine does 5,000 gallons, you take it to Phoenix, I'm a liar. And so I need to know, how much water do you need and where exactly are you making this water? And once I do that, I can say, okay, you're going to need this many machines on this amount of land. But that's how we operate. But a lot of our competitors, if you look at their customer service complaints, is that it didn't work, but they said it was going to work, and I didn't get that much water. Well, you're in the snow, or you're in the desert, or you're in the high up on the mountain, and that doesn't bode well. But I will tell you, there's an adequate amount of places, especially in South Texas and the coastal bend, and every 1 to 200 miles off the Gulf of Mexico, and anywhere like off, I think I can do stations up the Mississippi because I have a hydrologic cycle near the Mississippi River. And so wherever I have a hydrologic cycle, or wherever, but here's what people are missing: atmospheric rivers. You saw what happened in California, which is always bone dry, but what happened in San Diego? An atmospheric river.
Yeah.
A lot of water in the atmosphere. So when you think about places that are dry, like the GCC region, most people don't know that Dubai is very humid. It's very, Saudi Arabia near the Red Sea is very humid.
So do you like, Earl, do you like where you are now in the progress of the company? Do you think you should interact more with the experimental like Texas State that Andre mentioned? What as a CEO, what do you think you are now in terms of
where I'm at is I need a place where people can see the machine and they can kick the tires. So if we can do something at Texas State, UT, SAA, or San Antonio, what is it, University of Texas, San Antonio, any of the universities in Texas would be ideal, and strategic locations where I plan on building multiple pods, like Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. If I can get one university in the region, it's easy for me to show people the machine making water. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a university, it could be a hospital. It could be a
Right.
hospital
Okay.
center, or it could be a community center. Like most community centers in Houston double as a disaster relief place. That's ideal. In fact, our microstation was designed based on City of Angleton's rec center, which doubles as their disaster relief. It's actually FEMA's staging ground for wherever there's a weather event in Houston. FEMA and Texas Emergency Management and Texas Guard form up in Angleton because it's the highest point above the levee. And so this program was based on us trying to get 2 machines for their rec center. And so ideally we could set that up. We don't have to buy land or get permitted. They just need 50 by 50 feet, maybe put a slab down, put a fence around it, and Bob's your uncle. We can do that all day, anywhere. So Texas State, yeah, let's do it. That's San Marcos, right?
That is San Marcos. Yeah, I'll shoot you a note, and we should connect. We should try to get some funding jointly and create a whole project, put a machine to work.
I would really love to do that because I'm not going to say a politician in that city said that it was make believe what we were doing, but I would love to do it in Texas State because there's an official over there. There's a couple of city officials, one in Denton and one in San Marcos, that think, I'll just tell you, one guy said, don't tell me about this water witchery. I ain't got time for this. That's a very Texas comment. But
Yeah.
I just thought
maybe we should go to New Orleans where we depend on witchcraft. We enhance it.
Yeah.
he literally said that.
Final thoughts, Llewellyn.
It's very interesting. I'm interested in any way that water can be provided without the kind of environmental damage which alas attends desalination. I've been very concerned about these salt plumes that the Arabs are putting into the ocean. They're doing it off Dubai and they're doing it elsewhere as well. It looks nice. You just put the salt back in the water because that's where it came from, but it doesn't work like that. It kills everything. Salt is a powerful poison. If you keep it on land, you end up with hundreds of millions of pounds of salt and nothing to do with it. There's a cause and effect here everywhere. Water is going to be one. I talked about housing at the beginning of the program. Water is a large crisis. Either you have too much of it, as you do with flooding, or too little, as you do in a very large part of Africa at the moment because of the El Nino effect.
Here's the problem we have.
Water is going to be more and more of a problem going forward. More people, more animals, more need for water.
So you brought up a very good thing, and I'll end with this: is that when climate change hits, we get in a situation where we call the drought flood cycle. And when it floods, everybody's brain turns off. Oh, we don't need water. But the opposite of that
Look
is
at California. That's a standard reaction in California.
Yeah.
Either they want to build the peripheral canal or it's a total boondoggle. We don't need it. Look at the rain.
Yeah.
I've got to go, gentlemen. I thank you very much, but I've got a hard stop. I've got to get on the phone with a client. So take care.
Thank you, Llewellyn.
Bye.
Finish your thoughts, Terrell.
Well, I will just say thank you guys for having me. I love talking about what we do. And if you have more questions, feel free to get a hold of me. I can give you more details. And I'd love to talk to you about Texas State or any other opportunities.
Absolutely.
We're wide open. And
Yeah.
yes to all the above.
Let's explore doing something. I would love to. John Butler, take us away.
I was a highwayman. On the coast roads I did ride. Sword and pistol by my side. Many a maiden's lost their babbles to my trade. Many a soldier left their lifeblood on my blade. The bastards hung me in the spring of 25, but I'm still alive, and I'll come around again and again and again, again and again and again.
All right, Johnny. Thank you much.
Okay.
Johnny.
All right, thank you, Earl. Take care.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.